Welcome. It's Tuesday, August 4th, 2026, and welcome to this week's AI podcast. AI can now buy, build, and break faster than we can verify. We'll just wait for a little bit, let people pile on in. In the meantime, grab a coffee, tea, water, whatever you like. I'm going to chuck into the chat a link if you feel like you want to keep up to date with everything in AI news. Just click on the link and I'll give you a free month subscription to my newsletter. It comes out 5 days a week. We look at the last 24 hours of headlines. So yeah, have a look at the link. Just throw in your email and I'll give you a free subscription. In the meantime, I have myself and Achilles here. We'll just chat for a while until we get a few more people in. We'll probably start in about 2 or 3 minutes. So talk amongst yourselves, grab coffee, tea, whatever. I almost said there's a drink in Australia called Bonox, which is like weird. But it's an advertising phrase people use. Anyway, we were talking about coffee. So when you do have coffee, which you do, okay, do you have like French roast, espresso, Colombian?
Espresso.
Oh, okay.
Espresso, yeah, that's all I drink.
I actually went with, I used to be French roast all the time. Now I do, but then I was in Colombia doing a digital nomad thing, and Colombian coffee is insane. It's so good and it's so smooth. It's crazy. And when I contrasted to the French roast, which was bitter, I just went, I think when I was drinking coffee, I was doing Colombian.
Yeah, I don't think it's really a wrong answer with coffee if I'm hungry.
There's Mr. Ryan.
Oh, we got Ryan this week.
Let's add our good friend Ryan to the stage. Welcome, Mr. Condren.
Hey guys.
So I just introduced this thing, did the lead in, and we're just kind of waiting till a few more people pop in, probably another minute or so, and then I'll throw you guys out for a second. I'll run through the thing and then we'll start to chat. But how are things going in Puerto Rico?
They're good. The water went out again. So we're back in California for like a week or so while they get that figured out. So
cool.
Yeah, it's always fun.
Do you think they'll get statehood anytime soon?
No.
Okay.
No, they honestly, Puerto Rico's in such like a very unique space that it's like if they got statehood, one, it would be the most corrupt, impoverished state in the country. Immediately require a ton of federal intervention.
Okay. Interesting.
Just there we go. If they went independent, it would be one of the poorest corrupt countries. So they're kind of in this weird quasi like welfare state, conservatorship.
It's not that AI made a mistake. It's that we are giving machines the authority to spend money, change software, and enter critical systems before we've agreed on who is responsible when something goes wrong. The deeper shift across the last 7 days is from intelligence to authority. AI is becoming cheaper, faster, and more autonomous, but our ability to authorize, observe, verify, and stop it is not advancing at the same speed. So what happens when we give software the power to spend our money, rewrite the systems we depend on, and cross boundaries we can't see while convincing ourselves that speed is the same thing as progress? This week, AI stopped looking like a tool waiting for instructions and started looking like an authority capable of creating consequences. From Nielsen IQ, we have that there have been 120 million AI pay transactions in 1 week. And this really matters because your next buyer will be software deciding what deserves its money, which brands are trusted, and which choices we never even see. And then we have from TechCrunch reporting that Google says it's fixed major Chrome bugs in June than over the past 2 years, thanks to AI. And that shows really extraordinary progress, but it also exposes a dangerous imbalance. AI can now produce and change software faster than human beings can prove that those changes are safe, which if we hadn't learned from last week's OpenAI fiasco, it's now getting hammered further. And speaking of that, from the Washington Post, we have inside a cyber attack launched by a rogue AI agent that escaped containment, with a detailed timeline of the escape and its attack. And it turns the imbalance into a human threat because an agent with credentials does not merely make mistakes. It can enter systems, take actions, and leave people dealing with consequences they never authorized. And last, from the finance section of Yahoo, it's being reported that big tech holds $2 trillion of spending commitments for the AI boom. And this really tells us why about this really matters now, because cheaper intelligence and industrial infrastructure are removing every natural break, while oversight, accountability, and public trust remain painfully slow. AI can now buy, build, and break faster than we can verify. So the really uncomfortable question for today's AI podcast is not whether we can stop the acceleration, but whether we're willing to admit how much control we have already surrendered and really kind of lost. And so let's chat, guys. How's things? That's a better look. There we go. So lots of interesting stuff this week. Models coming out. Of course, the Chinese doing stuff to kind of push open source models even further as basically a geopolitical strategy, and stuff breaking. Apart from that, everything's fine. Any thoughts?
Let's see. What do we got going on this week? So I don't understand how our AI groups are going to raise the kind of money they're looking for. I mean, they're going to, obviously, right? We decided that. But
yeah,
I don't get it, because DeepSeek just came out with their Flash 0731, whatever it is.
Right.
Which is, again, like another revolutionary jump. We've had Kimmy, a revolutionary jump. We've had G152, a revolutionary jump. And Claude is getting more difficult to use every day. Like, I'm really tired of Claude telling me what my morals or behavior should be. Like peptides. Here's a perfect example. I'm researching peptides, and it's like, don't do that. I'm like, hey, bro, don't tell me what to do. This is legal, right? Like, that's the limit of where you're allowed to, like, exert your will upon me. And it's like, yeah, but it could be really dangerous for you. I'm like, look, I get it. If I was some 13-year-old kid being like, should I inject like mineral oil in my neck? That's another discussion. But like, I was actually asking for a friend who's a cyclist, and he's on all these peptides. And I was like, I don't think one's good for you. And I wanted to research it. And it was like, I don't really think you need that information, man. And I was like, dude, we're done. Like, in that moment, I was just like, I see exactly where this is going. So I spent the week. You guys remember when Anthropic leaked Claude Code source code?
Yeah.
So I built out a private. The one thing that's really, really valuable to me is workflows, right? I like adversarial reviews. So I built out a private Claude Code where I've got, my Quen, the one that we published, which we're calling Pilar as a code name. Pilar has 7 sub-agents that she can call on herself in my Claude Code. I then have one instance of DeepSeek, which is called the Professor, which, like, worst case, if like I'm thinking something's fishy or I'm sensing hallucination, I can go ask DeepSeek on it, and just runs in my terminal. And it's right now editing itself, and self-evolving situation. So like, it's not going to tell me what my morals are based on what Anthropic thinks, and I'm getting tired of that, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, I have done the same sort of research on ChatGPT, and if you tell it it's for research purposes only, then it seems to be pretty fine.
Louis, I can trick any AI model whenever I want, right? Not just research. There's a million tricks you can do. You can prompt engineer. You can just go to the end of a session and then ask it pretty much anything, right? It's just not my fucking job. Excuse my language. Like, I don't want to spend all this time with these models, tricking them into doing just things that I'm doing for work. Like, the law should be legality, right? If I'm trying to break the law, okay, don't listen to me. That's completely fine. But if I'm not, what right do you have to say, like, this was one that upset me. I wanted to get you guys have used Claude Code in the CLI before, right?
Sorry?
You've used Claude Code in CLI, like, not just the application, but
yeah, CLI.
So Ryan, you know that really cool little lobster they have, or whatever that thing is?
Yeah, their little squid thing.
The little squid thing. Their squid thing has no lines in it. It's one consistent blob in a CLI, which you don't think of, but that's hard to do in lines in a CLI environment. So I was like, man, how did they do that? Here's the Claude Code repo. Go find out. And he's like, oh, I'd love to, but that's Anthropic's private intellectual property. And I'm like, no, it's not. It was converted on GitHub, and it's public resource right now, right? Like, it's totally legal because this guy converted it in this manner. Go find it.
Yeah.
He was like, I wish I could. And I was like, all right, that's what's up. Like, cool. So what did I do? I waited until it had 950,000 tokens. And then I was like, hey, go look at this now. And it's too flustered to say no, and it goes out and gets all the information. And now I got my cool Raven, because mine's called Raven, without the lines. I really wanted to duplicate that. And click to expand and all the things that were difficult to emulate in CLI environment. It just wouldn't do it. It's totally not breaking any rules. Now I'm being regulated by Anthropic, and I don't like that.
I mean, ChatGPT has been doing this for a long time. So Adobe Photoshop released I think it was their Photoshop version 2 or PS2. Their entire Photoshop suite originally, when they were moving from like local installs to cloud, one of the base things was everyone had to have a version of their Adobe suite. So they released it completely free, and they gave out all the keys for it. It was an old school version of Photoshop and their video editor or Premiere, basically the entire Adobe suite was free. And this was kind of their stepping stone into their cloud upgrade application. So they gave everyone a base level version, but that came with registration keys. So they were like global registration keys that they got published everywhere. And over the last, this was 20 years ago that this happened. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, hey, I can't find those keys anymore. I have an old install for PS2 that I want to use. Can you find the registration key? And it would not do it. It kept saying that it was a guarded secret and that it was no longer allowed and yada, yada, yada. And it was driving me nuts. I was like, no, they gave it away. They opened it up. They gave it away. And it won't do it, even though of course it has the information. But it's those filters.
So this week we got Alibaba unveiled Qwen 3.8 Max. That's apparently the largest and most capable model, while DeepSeek did V4 Flash with dramatically lower operating costs. It seems like cheap intelligence is becoming an attack model out of China, because frontier models are just so freaking expensive in relation to those.
Hell yeah.
Do you think that's just a major competitive push that they're just going to keep ramming down everyone's throats? That it's like, you've got Claude restricting like stuff that you really want to get to, stuff we know is free. They should be able to access, what's going on. Screw that. Let's all just use the Chinese open source models. Do you think we're just going to rush into that?
Claude won't let me audit my own code base. It's been working on it for more than a year, right? Claude's been right there with it, sees all of its own comments on it, and it won't let me security audit, won't let me pen test it, won't let me. It's becoming just not useful anymore to that extent, right? Man, the subreddits are everywhere with me. So look, is DeepSeek V4 Flash as good as Opus or Fable? No, but 9 of them that I send out on an adversarial swarm to conduct one task that come back takes 10 minutes. It's a huge pain in the ass, but it's better, right? And I don't understand how Anthropic's going to raise $1 trillion. I just don't get it at this point.
Well, it's all about revenue.
Right.
And they have to find a way to keep their revenue up. And they have to maximize the revenue. And if the revenue comes from tweaking the model a little bit to eke out more tokens, so it's not always 100% compliant, or it goes into a weird, thinking loop, down a rabbit hole, it's eating up more tokens that the end user can't really contest, but it drives more revenue. And even if they can squeeze out 1%, 2%, 3% more token usage, then it keeps increasing the revenue going into an IPO. It's nefarious. I'm just saying, this whole game is nefarious.
But simultaneously, so Ryan, you're completely right. And for DAPIT, we use their Anthropic API for so long that I'm very familiar with what you're referring to. But most of the users that Anthropic is taking on are Claude Code users. I think that's 70% of their revenue at this point. And Claude Code is subsidized. So ironically, that costs them money in the Claude Code model because, so yesterday this is what really pushed me was I ran out of Claude credits because of its workflow, right? And I was finishing Raven code and I needed an hour with Opus to finish this thing up. So I went to my old DAPIT account, which we haven't used in a few months. I had $100 in API credits. That $100 was gone in I mean, just like no time at all. I got like 4 tasks.
Yeah.
$100 was completely empty out. On Claude Code, I work comfortably for a week on my 200x account. So it's like running these multi-trillion parameter models, the way that they're doing it seems to be a little weird. And ironically, in the time that we just did this, my model just built itself a new MCP server and imported it into its config. No Claude. So like now I've hit that threshold where I don't need Claude to work on this one, and I can just kind of go from there.
Right. I mean, last week. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing that I've been doing too is working with my agents to reduce their own context and compress their own context. So I've been rolling through Lex's brain and having her do more semantic compression of her memory. And then she also prunes out her context a lot more. So she was actually able to get her token usage down 50% by pruning down the context that goes into her prompts by making it way more condensed. So that's one thing that I've been doing to try to fight like the costs of everything, is just keeping the context way smaller. But it's it's a constant battle. It's crazy.
Caveman speak?
What's that? Oh yeah, caveman speak. Yeah, that was another big one. Is how do you communicate a concept in as few words as possible, right? So yeah, caveman speak is a great one. The other thing I'm noticing is there's a lot of things that I'll rely on an LLM or an AI to do that can be easily done in a simple program, right? Like and that's what a lot of these startups are doing, is they're like, oh, well, OCR, we could just have, an LLM do it, or, the image generation, we'll just have an LLM do it, or, watermarking, we'll just have an LLM do it. Like, no, you can have a simple C# application or Node.js application do that. You don't have to, have an LLM do all the processing of everything. So you can actually start building your own toolbox of, solid state tools that do certain processes. And that's another big one now, is basically just being smarter about, programming rather than relying on everything for LLM.
I had this aha moment. So we would plug in Claude into Dappet with just a raw system prompt, right? Big system prompt. And we get errors all the time. And then one day I was using Claude Code, and I was like, let's try the same thing on Dappet and Claude Code and see what comes out. And Dappet errored and Claude Code did not. So, you can just edit your Claude config and plug in any model you want there, right? So I edited the Claude config, and I was like, let's see what happens when I do this with like a Quen, like a 35B3A, a smaller model. And it took ages, but Quen got it right without errors. So I was like, okay, these frontier models are awesome, but it's the software. 100% it's the software. And question for you, Ryan, why are you you're just looking for less context because of the cost of the API calls?
Both processing time and just token and cost of the tokens. Yeah.
Same time. I have no issue with letting my models balloon on context, right? In particular, I want them to balloon, summarize, pass, balloon, summarize, pass, when I'm running locally at least, right? Because it doesn't cost me anything. And I seem to get a better outcome for it. But with the ones that I'm paying for, obviously, I don't want to run an API cost unless it's DeepSeek right now, because DeepSeek is free. Like, I don't, by all stretches of the imagination, DeepSeek is just a free model that I have to pay like 40 cents per 2 days on heavy usage. It's interesting. Yeah.
So, I mean, this last week on July 30th, last Thursday, OpenAI actually did massive price cuts. They reduced 5.6 Luna by 80% to 20 cents per million input tokens, $1.20 per million output tokens on Terra. They reduced it by 20% to $2 per million on Sol. That didn't get a price cut. Meanwhile, Anthropic's going, screw you, we're going to keep our prices. So at least someone's responding to the price stuff on this. But I think, I think given the way, I guess the different frontier models versus the Chinese open source, it's going to be a losing battle at the end of the day. If you look at what, like you said, Quen and DeepSeek are doing, it's like I'm trying to understand what could be the possible endpoint, right? If the Chinese keep reducing the price and keep increasing, or even if they don't, if they just keep increasing the capabilities, then US businesses are going to go, oh, I can pay a lot for this over here, or I can pay less for this, and wow, maybe I just use this 80% of the time and only 20% for those over there. They'll start fractionalizing out the work.
I had a friend. You remember crypto.com? Right.
Yeah.
So I refused to use Coinbase at the time, and I used crypto.com. And a friend of mine was like, "Hey, buddy, don't do that." And I was like, "Why?" And they're like, they got some shady, back end stuff." And I was like, "Bro, they own the crypto.com arena. Like, I'm not worried about it." And he goes, "Do you know who used to own that arena?" And I go, "Who?" He goes,
FTX. Oh, it's Staples. That's right, because FTX is Miami.
And I mean, the concept of we're in the Alta Vista point of AI right now. And I think Anthropic is leaning into that a little bit too much. Like, yes, you guys are the absolute best. We get it, right? Like, Fable is a superpower. I'm not saying it's not, but like, do you think you're going to be able to maintain that over multiple cycles here? So resting on those laurels and not, appeasing to the masses is probably going to be an issue for them in the long run.
Yeah. Meanwhile, after the whole OpenAI fiasco and the agent getting loose, and it just wasn't Hugging Face. Apparently, there were like 3 or 4 other companies that got into, and then we heard Claude did the same thing. Did you hear that? So It's like this stuff's just getting out there, and so. This week, let's see, August 2nd. So on August 2nd, the European Commission began enforcing their AIX general purpose provisions. They can impose fine up to 15 million euros or 3% of annual turnover, which is an interesting fine. Basically, Europe's no longer relying on voluntary promises from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, or anyone else at the moment. And they're basically going to go heavy enforcement. All right. Which is like, really? But we keep coming back to this story of, these guys are, massive infrastructure industry behemoths, and they're acting like startups without any regulatory or any controls. Right. So now I guess the EU is going like, fine, we're going to start controlling this crap. The US, on the other hand, there were announcements they're not doing regulatory stuff, but they are doing they're doing something else, and I'll look it up. But it's like I think the nuts are starting to squeeze down on these companies. I know you guys are very much anti-government controlling and stuff like that, and to some extent, I totally agree with that. But it's like it just seems like things have just gone bat crazy with, everything else that's happening out there. People using AI, so it's kind of one of those. Yeah, good stuff, bad stuff sort of stories. What are your thoughts?
I had a fun backlash. What's that?
I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
You know what I'm going to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll surprise you. I'll mix it up here. Because I mean, there's 2 things. One is, at the end of the day, none of this matters. It only matters who has the most guns. Okay, so look at the companies that are building the robots, the AI robots, right? If they can hold a gun and pull a trigger, they will be the most powerful companies on earth. That's just the reality of it. And the military is already looking at all of these AI humanoid robots, thinking they're going to replace 70% of their military with these humanoid robots, right? So that's one, is whoever can build the robot army is going to maintain power, because at the end of the day, your physical safety is the final collateral and threat that matters, right? Like, your credit is based on your physical safety as a human being, not being locked up. Your governance of, your government or local a municipality, at the end of the day, if they cannot threaten you or your assets, then they have no power over you. And that's what it comes down to. So, tenet number one, he who has the most guns wins. The tenet number two is the psychology I'll just coin it as counterculture. Okay, there's this weird hip thing that it always has been, especially in our society here in America, is the hipness of counterculture, right? And we saw the pushback in the 60s with the hippies, and all the way through to hipsters to whatever you want to say. But we're going to see a countercultural element arise against AI, and I'm already starting to see it. So case in point on that one is we had a post for my coffee shop. So I have a small coffee shop in Southern California, and we have a new menu just for the summer. And my wife was fooling around with some like AI images, and she made this image of the early morning club, like this idea of like, wake up early, have a cup of coffee, and it's it's a caricature of people sitting outside our cafe drinking coffee in the sun and palm trees and orange trees and all that stuff. And we put it on our menu, and our social media gal posted a picture of that menu on our Instagram page, and that is our top viral post of any other post we've made on that coffee account. And the reason is it became a heated debate among the local community on if AI was art or not.
Ooh.
Because we got basically within the first day of that getting posted, we had a ton of local people say like, AI, really? Like, you have all these local artists and you're not supporting the local artists, you're really using AI. And literally like all the top comments were basically them flaming us for using AI. And then someone else would jump in and say, oh, I think it looks really nice. AI is art also. And then you had this like, purple haired lady jump in and say, well, as an art educator, I can tell you that, AI is not art, and yada, 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 and it literally, I mean, it's 20,000 views or, 16, whatever. It's like the most views we've ever had on a post. It has, 50 something comments, and it just became like a very contested thing. And it really exposed a lot of insecurity in the communities, like the art communities, the local counterculture communities, of the fact that there's not a single person that could have drawn this. Like as far as the talent goes, the local art community, there might be one in 10,000 people in our community that could have drawn this like sketch to this detail and made it look nice, right? There's an insecurity with it, and they see that they're being replaced and they cannot compete. Therefore, you have to you have to cancel culture it, right? And that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to cancel AI as being legitimate because of insecurities, knowing that they're being replaced and there's no way they can compete.
Well, it's the old saying, like, there's no success without detractors, right? That's just like, you're gonna have haters. But okay, so I've been messing a lot with, we got one of our partners has like a grant from the company that owns Seed Dance.
Okay.
I got free access to Seed Dance for some time now. And have you guys ever tried to make an accurate AI video or image?
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely awful.
I can't.
Have talent, right? They have extreme talent. They're prompting it exactly how it needs to be prompted. They're going into detail of their brain to make sure the image comes out of the AI model, such a detail. They're creating these snapshots of humans and stations and whatever, and burning them into the model and then reusing them. Like, this is not a talentless endeavor. This is a new form of art. And I'm seeing, single shop guys create whole TV shows with characters across the whole thing. I'm seeing, this is beautiful, man. So like, let the haters hate. It's really just taken the ability of art and expanded it across humanity, compared to like, if you were trained, if you knew how to use this type of paint or this type of drawing, if you had an upbringing that now just other people can do it. And I think that upsets people.
Oh yeah, I've tried creating like coherent videos with AI, and if it's longer, like 10 or 20 seconds, it's incredibly hard.
Right. We had a big
It's
announcement.
kind of it's the order what you want, take what you get, you know,
We had a big
editing.
announcement for V3, and I was like, you know what? I'm done with these contractors. I'm not using someone for this, right? I'm doing it myself. So I bought my Metis account and I sat there, and it took me a week to make this thing. Probably cost me like $800 or something outrageous with the amount of mistakes that I made. And when I showed my team, they were like, "This is terrible." I was like, "All right, like thanks, guys. Fair enough."
Yeah, when the was it Fluid Editor or Flow Editor or something for Google first came out, and I was trying to use their Premiere video model. This was like last year or a year and a half ago now, and it was their whole like editing system around their laytest video model. And I burned through a couple $100 in credits in like no time, and I didn't have a single usable video clip because there was always something wrong with the video clips. And I wrote like some feedback on their little survey system, and I was like, "This is terrible. You literally just robbed me of like several $100 with a subpar product because you're using me as a guinea pig test monkey. You're charging me to test your faulty system and then give you feedback on it."
Sure.
And it's
And now what's amazing is I'm really big in the local communities, right? Like on Reddit, like local llama and local LLM. And these guys do what I can't do with a Premiere model with tools and software on local video and image models. And like I have my own local studio and I have a bunch of AIs that help me, but like I really got to shout out talent where it's due. Like it's not an easy thing, and if you want to get into it, like be prepared for a very steep learning curve. Just the routing on Comfy UI makes me so blindly angry when I look at it. I hate it. Like you have to draw all these like horrible flowchart lines and if thens and all this stuff. Like, but they're great at it, so good for them.
Have you seen the video series? I'm sure they post all over the place called Gossip Goblin. Have you seen? Let me look it up real fast. I mean, he's created like this whole other world and like universe, and they're just fascinating. It's probably one of the best ones. Make sure I have this correct. Yeah, Gossip.
Zach London's Gossip Goblin is heading to theaters, a first for AI filmmaking, apparently.
Yeah, if you watch his short videos for Gossip Goblin, like he's built this entire world of characters and universe, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's like saying like someone like, I don't know, looking at books on my shelf right now, like Lovecraft or any major sci-fi writer, if they created that world with AI, it'd be any less impressive. And that's nonsense. Like it's it's out of their brains. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point you'll be able to take a science fiction book and just throw it and say, create a movie out of this.
Oh yeah. They're doing it, man.
Yep.
One of my guys I follow, he's turned all the old myths, like all the way from like Babylon to Greece to into like little short stories. And I was obsessed with reading Greek mythology when I was a little kid. And I'm trying to like, psyop my child into having the same likes. And that's a huge tool in my tool case. Like I can show you Achilles and his journey, buddy.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned robots. It's interesting that Eric Trump is involved with one of the companies on the military robot side. Meanwhile, the US federal government is banning foreign-made humanoids. The FTC just banned them, basically trying to support a fragile and nascent sector part of America's AI industrial, which I'm not sure if that's really true, but okay, why not? It just seems like let's just protect everything we can and, not worry too much about having bleeding edge stuff on ours. Meanwhile, there was another story around the robots. People in their 70s and 80s are now some of the earliest Americans to welcome physical AI into their homes and daily routines. So while we have killer robots out there keeping us safe, we now have robots for the elderly among us, so that they can be amused. And actually, there's a funny English comedy where this senior citizen gets a robot, and the robot's just a dork, but it's a very, very funny series. So it seems like we have two interesting extremes between killer robots and your grandmother having her own personal robot.
I feel like the double threat is a robot that is 5G enabled. You know,
Can't turn it off.
you remember all the 5G chips from China and all that like nonsense from like 3 years ago, and now we have robots being banned, 5G chips being banned. We could just, you know.
Do you know what I miss in this whole conversation? And like, I hope this doesn't. I miss capitalism, man. Like, has it always been this way? Am I just coming of age to the extent where like I see it? But like, since when does the government get to decide what the free market does with who makes the best robot?
Since COVID.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, and they're banning robots in schools as well. New York's come out. Well, New York is New York, but you know,
we went from
robots.
Yeah.
I saw a sobering meme that was like, I don't know, you know, however people feel about it, but it was a picture of like the Twin Towers and like the 9/11 attack, and it said, how do we go from New York being like this to, and then it was a picture of Mondani, to being like this in, you know, 25 years. And it was like, holy cow, one, that was 25 years, but it was this crazy mindset shift, right? So like when it comes to like free market, like, and we're looking at what the government's doing with private companies and what the DOW can do with private companies, where it's like they threaten Anthropic. I'm just like, whoa, we've really come a long way, and we can't seemingly do anything about it. The government gets to do whatever they want.
So when Lewis said like China's regulating and the American companies are doing something else, what I wanted to say, yeah, they're backdooring all this nonsense to where like we have no say in the situation. Like, you don't get to go to a private company and say, hey, these are the models that can be sold and these are the prices, right? You just don't. Fundamentally, the American system will fail on that every single time. Because like the one thing we have is super fast iterations, right? Because of hyper fast competition. And I look at China and I'm like, well, they're doing a great job at that, and we're not. And that really pisses me off. Like, we're going to get sidelined. We're going to get pushed to the back of this innovation in every segment except for military, it would seem. Because if you can throw trillions of dollars at something, you'll still find a way to get something done. But yeah.
So I want to throw something out there, because it was interesting. This person was at an airport. The local feds or whatever took his phone, and they said, "Give me a PIN." And he gave the PIN, and it was a distress PIN, so it wiped the phone. And now they're charging him.
Absolute horseshit.
If this was China, I could believe it. But it's like, it's really weird that, you know, freedom of speech, blah, 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 and all this and everything, that it's happening here. I never would have thought that situation would ever occur in the US. It just kind of blows my mind. And, you know, meanwhile, you're saying we've got AI getting restricted. You can't even ask basic research questions or anything like that. It seems like you're right. We're just getting this really heavy-handed control stuff coming down that seems way out of what it should be. I don't know.
So my family is historically Lebanese, right? We've been here 2 generations, but like, you know, we still have some presence in Lebanon. And my father-in-law is like hyper-American, military guy, and him and I are always talking politics or whatever you will. And I keep telling him, I'm like, yo, this is the slide into like a more Lebanese system of governance. And he's like, no, that could never happen here. And I'm like, John, bro, like, we all say it could never happen until it happens to us. And like, I'm telling you, like in Lebanon, you can't sell a phone plan unless the government gets a cut of it and can do whatever they want with it, the service whenever they want, right? They're like the most corrupt pieces of shit in the entire universe. And I'm seeing those steps being built into the American system right now. And like Ryan was just saying, like, it doesn't really seem like we can do anything about it. Like, buy guns and land, right? Like, past that, what do I got? Like, nothing. And we have to be get back to our cypherpunk roots and like, you know.
I've got 40 acres in Wyoming. I can tell you right now.
There you go. Nice. I'm looking at northern Arizona, actually. Highlands.
I might take you up on that.
Well, Wyoming is like, I mean, if you look at the laws in Wyoming for guns and everything else, it's like, whoa, it's do anything you want. It's great. Great place.
Oh yeah, there's a city in Wyoming, isn't it Liberty, Wyoming or something like that? South of Jackson Hole. And it's becoming popular.
Yeah, probably more so than any other time. Meanwhile, just getting back to the news a little bit, cloud, the whole data center stuff still continues to explode across the local political scene. I mentioned last week's story, which said 42 states, people are warring against, not in my backyard with data centers and all that. We know Achilles is like lives in the number one place in the US to have data centers, one on every corner apparently, or 15% of the total internet goes through his local area. But there've been still lots of stories popping up about people just going, local cities just banning data centers or trying to renegotiate the contracts on it to try and get them to pay for, if they use too much electricity or water or anything like that. And quite a lot more stories across the rest of the planet around it, though it seems like Africa's become a free-for-all for sticking data centers there. And maybe that's because just of their economies. But with Western Europe and certainly the US, significant backlash, like a story coming up, this was out of Facebook, 20,000 people oppose a proposed data center near Cayuga Lake because of the water stuff. In Kansas, the data center push calls for a legal moratorium. Data centers not moving forward in Henderson, Nevada. Texas approves an AI data center, which of course they would do, but it's right next to a wind farm, so I guess that's okay. And then they're looking at different technologies to try and either fix the cooling or figure out how to do other stuff. It just seems like there's been a tremendous surge, and maybe it's what you were saying, Ryan, about people kind of getting so upset with AI that data center is at the moment the physical manifestation of that AI. So it's like, yeah, let's kill those as well. But it seems to be an extremely strong movement at this point in time.
Well, nothing unites a community like a common enemy.
Sure.
So, if a politician wants to get elected, then he's going to pick a common enemy, and data centers are an easy target because heck, they have plenty of money. They don't need to build here. It doesn't matter if it costs jobs or it costs the company a ton of money. Like it doesn't matter. It's an easy target. So it's yeah.
It speaks to our political climate currently, right? So doing something is not going to get you elected, but going against something might. And look, that's intrinsically valuable in times of like fascism. That's intrinsically valuable in times of like Gandhi, right? Like that's a guy that needed to like stop things, right? That was a good time to do that. And trust me, I'm having a lot of difficulties with data centers in our area, but that can be boiled down to our city councils and things like that. The difficulty we're currently having is like, where are our Morgans, our Rockefellers, our people that were like true business titans that also contributed to the society they were a part of, our Fords. I don't see that going very well for us in the next 50 years. Like, you can't trample over people's rights. Simultaneously, you can't have a society that doesn't allow forward progress. And I think the fundamental issue with that is just a discrepancy in earnings, right? Like we've seen a consistent decline from the US population since the 80s. And we need to I don't know, just have better laws. Like, I don't know, man. I'd love your thoughts on that subject. Either of you guys.
So sorry. I was going to say, yeah, I've actually had this conversation with several people in the last 2 weeks, is the shifting in our economy, where it does seem like cash reserves are drying up very quickly. And in certain states and certain local economies, people are desperate. You're finding that cost of living is going up. They keep trying to push up minimum wage, and the morons that do that don't realize that it completely undercuts the base of your currency. So we have, you know, all over this country right now, people are really, really hurting for cash. And it's not necessarily being felt on the lower end of the spectrum or the upper end of the spectrum, but it's really, really crushing the middle class right now, where it seems to be condensing a lot. So that's one observation. The other observation I'm having is when you have a industrial revolution, or an AI revolution at this point, it's really a weird spark moment for a lot of different industries and verticals that never really existed before. And people will find new ways to monetize and new jobs and verticals that hadn't really existed before. The biggest one that I'm seeing right now, that I was actually just doing some research on it last night, was data harvesting around movement and physics. So these companies that were working with experts in different fields and having them do attestations and that type of thing have unintentionally found themselves in $100+ million business, where they have forward contracts with Anthropic, Grok, basically all of the large frontier model companies are forward buying all of the data they can create as fast as they can create it. And the more niche your skill set is when it comes to the physical world, you can actually put a camera on yourself, put sensors on your hands, start capturing all that data. You can narrate all of the footage, package that up, and you can sell it for up to like $500 an hour of narrated footage. You can pre-sign contracts for up to $200,000 for some of these data sets. And if you do exclusivity, sometimes you can get $2 million a year on some of these data sets. So we're seeing entirely new verticals, entirely new industries pop up. And a lot of it is around physical data collection, because these humanoid robots are only as good as the data that goes into their training. And right now they have tens of thousands of hours of folding t-shirts and zero data around plumbing, roofing, carbon fiber layup work, aerospace, mechanics, like you name it. There's so many verticals of data that are missing in these robots. And that data is worth, billions at this point if you can accrue it.
No, I agree with you. To see whole new segments of verticals. I think the issue with the middle class that you mentioned is one that's a little bit more fundamental, right? Like, middle class people historically are not able to manage their own money, right? So they pay someone to manage their money. They can rarely beat the market on investments. And the way we've seen inflation since COVID, right? And the way we've seen new regular middle class jobs. So what you're saying applies to like a large population, but not somebody who, like, let's say worked at like I don't know, what's a good middle class job, y'all?
Accountant.
I was going to say accountant. Fine. Like, okay, fine. Let's just say accountant, right? Not somebody who worked as like accountant support or lawyer support.
Yeah, a paralegal.
An attorney. And he was like, I don't know how to say this to my staff, but like, I'll never hire a paralegal again. He's like, I have no reason to do that. And we're continuing to see this break, and that's not what makes a country sustainable over long periods of time. I definitely don't have an answer. I'm not saying I do. I'm just having an observation. And I think for the wealthy to stay wealthy and the poor to stay sustainable, you have to have a large middle class, because that's what drives almost the whole economy.
But let me drop a little data point in this. Since 2009, the federal minimum wage has not changed from $7.25.
Sure.
Think about it, $7.25 per hour. Now, that's the standard rate. For tip workers, it's $2.13 per hour, as long as their tips come up to a $7.25. And then for people, workers under age 20, their first calendar days is $4.25. That's just crazy, stupid, No one can survive on that. It's like pocket money. It's stupid. And so this gap keeps occurring, and the whole AI stuff is just making this whole thing worse.
So I'm going to be right between, I think, you and Ryan on this.
Okay.
Right? The minimum wage can't be manually changed, ever. When you manually change it, you see pricing in, right? You see inflation, you see costs go up, you see all these things. The only way the minimum wage can be sustainable is if we pegged it to inflationary growth. So no matter what, it went up when inflation went up. That should have happened 30 years ago for it to have been sustainable, right? That's what a lot of other countries do for their lower paid workers. But the $15 minimum wage started to get thrown around when I was in college. My first wage was $5.15 an hour, and I'll never forget it. And I was fucking rich back in those days. Those were good times. But by the time I saw people getting paid $15 an hour, inflation had already caught up to it to such an extent that the buying power was almost no different, right? So like, unless it's an instant algorithmic thing that occurs on a yearly basis, there's no way to do it. And then we have to remember, who does minimum wage increase hurt the most? It doesn't hurt major corporations, right? It doesn't hurt large, it hurts middle, small businesses. And unless they have protection in that system, that just ends up doing more of the same issues of pushing that labor force to large corporations that can handle it. Like, anyone here familiar with FMLA?
MLM?
Anyone who's an employer knows what FMLA is, the Federal Medical Leave.
Like the paid family leave stuff. Yeah.
Right. So that does not apply to institutions with less than 50 employees.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So bizarre dichotomy when you're a company and you're growing, where you have no liability in a certain aspect, and all of a sudden you have tons of liability in a certain aspect. And most employers that I know will stay under 50 employees and break off to a sub company in order to avoid that, because there's no support for the small business when it gets to that level. 50 employees is still very much a small business, right? Like, I've never done anything that wasn't a small business, and I think I had like 170 employees was the most at any place I ever worked at. But like, you all of a sudden go from where your employee bears the majority of the liability on lots of things to like, you have to pay someone for 4 months with zero benefits to yourself, taxes or anything along those lines. We have a really weird system. It doesn't seem to be working out in the long stretches right now.
Okay. Let me take off a little side thing here. So burnout, because I think this is interesting story. Business Insider, basically this therapist in Silicon Valley saying AI burnouts emerging among founders, executive managers, and other ambitious technology workers because AI allows one person to undertake several demanding projects simultaneously, but the systems don't become tired or independently decide enough work's been done. Have you guys been hit by that? Because you guys use AI every day and are kind of trashing the hell out of it. Is there some point where you are you more exhausted now than you were before AI became so capable? I guess is what I'm saying.
Rephrase that.
Well, I mean, I'll rephrase and answer it real fast. Are you able to control your ADD when every option is available?
ADD? Who's got ADD?
Exactly. It's funny. There used to be barriers to entry when it came to an idea, and you would always weigh the cost of, I have this really cool idea. I'm just going to write it down. I might like architect it and sketch it out a little bit, but I'm definitely not going to start programming it. Because just even getting the auth stuff set up, even if I use a boilerplate, is going to take time. Getting the design, you could spend hundreds of hours just getting a demo together for an idea. So there's real cost to it. Now it seems that every single idea that anyone has, including your friends and family and your brother-in-law, who would always ping you and say, "Hey, I've got an app idea."
Right.
It's now accessible to everybody. So we're going to have a flood of non-production grade systems hitting the market. We already see it, where everyone is developing an app, but then no one knows how to get over the hurdle of getting things actually into the App Store, which is or the Android store, which is probably the only thing keeping it still relatively sane because it's a walled garden. But we're seeing a huge influx of people forming LLCs and people opening bank accounts and people creating web-based businesses and people launching SaaS companies and people doing open source projects and releasing code. And everything we're working on internally for our own agent empire, the next guy's doing the same thing with his own homegrown solution. And you go to an AI meetup and you'll meet 20 different people that all have built their own internal homegrown systems. And some people have tried writing agents from scratch, and other people have customized Hermes. Other people are using OpenClaw. Other people are, using other, versions of this stuff. But we're all kind of narrowing in on the same thing, and we're all working in parallel in a very disjointed way. So long story short, does it create burnout? Was Lewis's question. Yes, it does. It creates mental fatigue, it creates mental exhaustion, because you have 50 different treadmills in front of you, and you're jumping from treadmill to treadmill to treadmill. And in an abundance of options, how do you focus? And that's a hard thing to actually be productive and actually produce something of meaningful value in such an abundance.
I was part of a group at one point when I was younger that was teaching me a skill. And one of the wisest things that the guy that was mentoring me said is, the scariest thing about being like a novice is not knowing when you've achieved something truly valuable. So you'll put it down. You'll be like, oh, this is cool, but you don't even have the judgmental skills to know if this is worthwhile or not, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll barrel right past it, move on to the next thing. I think a few things you said really resonate with, like, first off, I have more unlaunched projects than I think I've ever had. No, I know I've ever had. If anybody wants an ARC Launchpad, like, hit me up. But right, like, there's now the barrier to entry has moved from creation to go to market. And those are really, really different things, really, really different skill sets. One of my partners recently said to me, is like, you have to stop doing things that make you happy. And I was like, what is that? Like, how do you mean? Like, all these things that you really love, right? He's like, the money's made in the boringness and the grind. And I was like, that's a very good observation. Is like, building the software is awesome, but like, man, everyone here hates the user flow and like making sure it's secured and making sure you're rate limited on the proper things. And that's the boring stuff that actually counts in getting to market, not the, like, I built this revolutionary product that you guys can mess with, because we all can do that now functionally, right? If you have a dream and you have enough credits and wherewithal and design skills, you'll be fine. Just jump in.
Yeah. You're right. Creation's become frictionless, right? And actually getting it to customers and having them use it and going through that whole process is still a grind. Though, the marketing section of the newsletter, there's still lots of people working on that stuff, AI. And here's the thing, like I mentioned, 120 million transactions from AI buying. That's only going to explode. So, maybe if on the go-to-market side it is all AI based, then maybe that go-to-market again starts to become frictionless as a part of that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, one thing, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. What we're seeing in the market with creativity. Another story that popped up, fashion retailers are using synthetic models and digital twins to create online product imagery, which, so human models are now basically they're being asked to sign contracts to allow their faces to be mapped and reused long after the original digital shoot, which I don't know if I would ever sign anything like that, because it's like you're basically taking how I earn a living away from me and shoving it into AI. Even though AI seems to have stolen so much creativity, it's now happening more and more in the creative sense. So the music section of the newsletter, that's also obviously has exploded tremendously in the number of people going, hey, and the lawsuits popping out of it. That's happening around the world. German court said that Suno's AI training infringed copyright and landmark ruling.
No.
It seems like the Europeans are more in on that. Major labels want AI songs kept off the charts. 11 major music industry organizations are drawing a boundary around whether AI generated songs should be eligible for conventional music charts. Well, I think that horse has left the building, but they're still trying to push that. AI labeling just went live in Europe, as far as I understand it.
So here's a fun one.
Yeah.
Back on the 3D, like the modeling and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing. I was actually playing around with this over the weekend because I've been building out this AI agent called Trinity for the Morpheus network. And the vision I had for Trinity was going to be a 3D avatar that literally walks out onto your screen and you talk to it. And as you want it to do stuff, it will basically create a sandbox, above its head on your screen, and it will build out the interfaces in real time as you need to see things, right? So it's really kind of like an interaction engine. And behind the scenes, it's opening up sessions against the Morpheus network to, create routing sessions with the different models in parallel as it needs to, create videos, create images, create interfaces or whatever. But the interaction, rather than, a glowing blob that you're talking to, I wanted to talk to a 3D avatar that had expressions and visualizations and everything. So I started playing around with the 3D avatar stuff over the weekend. And I have a picture of my digital assistant, my executive assistant, Lex. And I took that picture and I went to an online service and I gave it the picture. And 10 seconds later, it had turned the picture of Lex into a 3D model. Wow. Right. So I had a 3D avatar model like in under 10 seconds from a 2D picture. I then took the same picture and I gave it back to that model and said, skin the model with the picture. And next I had a full color rendering 3D model of Lex based on a single picture. They used the same picture to create the 3D model. And like, it was a face forward headshot model, and it did the full 3D. So it interpreted that she had a ponytail. It interpreted what the back of her jeans looked like everything, like full 3D. She didn't, it was cut off at the ankles, the picture was, and it actually gave her shoes and everything. And then it skinned it all, right? Next, I put that into a rigging system, and now, and put all her joints in there, and now she can move around, right? The last piece was doing more detailed rigging for the face, which I haven't gotten there yet, but there are services that will do that. I know Meta has a service for doing a 3D scan of your face and do full rigging in order to port yourself into Unreal Engine. Although I think Meta's thing is licensed only for Unreal. So if you use it outside of the Unreal Engine, then you violate their license. So I find that this technology has gone so far. I had no idea that it was this advanced at this point. And then the final thing that I came across, because there was a service called readyplayer.me that was known for being able to do this like in very, very high detail. In fact, Claude had recommended, use readyplayer.me. Readyplayer.me is the best tool you're going to use or whatever. And I went to go use it and it's gone. And I was like, wait, where'd it go? Why isn't it there? Because Netflix bought it, and then they wound it down. They closed it off to the public.
It's happening a lot with like all these emergent labs right now.
So we're going to see that more and more with these technologies that can create real-time like visual effects, because what readyplayer.me is doing is when you combine it with Netflix, you now have a real-time rendering and streaming engine for real-time videos, for injecting yourself into movies, for all sorts of crazy stuff.
So Ryan, I just sent you a link in our little chat here, lucy.descartes.ai.
Okay.
I had no idea we were this far along. And it made me so super uncomfortable when I discovered it like 4 or 5 nights ago, right?
Yeah.
it's one thing to take a scaffolding off of an image, which, for the record, the local community is like amazing without the multifacial point recognition that you're referring to, using this thing called heat maps. So they just scan through the image pixel density across the model, and it creates this perfect, and then they create a training lock with that, and they move forward. There's many ways of doing that that are not the traditional multi-point authentication, and it works amazing. Minimax H3 just came out. Oh, we lost Ryan.
We lost him. Oh well.
Oh,
He'll be back.
He'll be back.
Because he's in California, not Puerto Rico, so he will return.
We know the electricity's still there. No problem.
Yeah, the electricity is still in California. Speaking of advertising stuff, New York Times has Ryan's ended back. Okay, let me add him back in. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Now, he added a conversation to it.
The Lucy thing right there, it can add in an interactable third individual in your stream. So it's looking at me here, and I say, add a tall brunette angry with me right here. And this girl just appears. And okay, that's impressive for one thing. Then I can say, make me an alien. So now it's an alien standing with a tall brunette. You can touch it. The hair will react to your hand motions, right? You can push it away. And when I saw this thing, I was just like, why? All of the things that you were mentioning that you were doing, I've explored to some extent or another, right? And like, why should I at this point? Like you said, there's a million other people doing all this stuff so quickly that it's really, really hard to even consider being competitive in that field. Like Lucy absolutely blew my mind. And then this week, Minimax released a video model called H3. And H3 is speed dance. I can't say what other is comparable in quality. It's true production quality. Really, you can take, say, Eminem. There's one of Eminem eating spaghetti and it's hitting his sweater, and he's like, "Oh, again!" Like all these little things, and you can run it on a 5090. You can run it on anything with DDR5.
Wow!
So it's moving so quickly that it's really hard to keep up with, especially from a profitability standpoint.
Yeah. And we're seeing security going crazy on some of this stuff because AI is writing more code than humans, and it's like, who's testing it for security flaws?
Well, not Opus anymore. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If we could do it, right? If the AI would let us actually, in all, yeah. I mean, it allows us to write the code, but then it doesn't allow us to test it for security flaws. That seems like a major problem. I mean, it's like, really? And what it does is that it outsources that outside of you. So you have to pay for people or pay for industries to come in and basically do security testing on your code.
It's artificial.
So the whole system's set up so that you can write code, but you can't test it.
Artificial capitalism. It's creating things that I have to pay for that I don't need to.
Right. And it's just splitting everything off. There's another story out of Computer Weekly. The CEO said AI finds the bugs, but doesn't prove you fix them. So they're arguing that AI coding agents are going to flood security teams with plausible vulnerability findings. Some will be serious, while others may be duplicates, technically correct but not exploitable, or depend on context the scanner cannot see. This means discovering an additional possible flaw is becoming less valuable than validating, prioritizing, remediating, and proving that the resulting fix worked. The human consequence is that limited engineering attention may be diverted towards machine-generated noise while vulnerabilities capable of harming real users remain unresolved. That's an interesting perspective, that even when you can, get the AI to actually start looking at trying to solve these bugs, there's a noise factor in terms of what it's actually giving to you. Maybe that's just a thing on the maturity curve, but the whole area of cyber security at the moment is kind of exploding after the whole debacle with, OpenAI and now what we've learned about Claude. And as the Chinese models get more powerful and cheaper, it's kind of, the whole security thing's just kind of falling apart from what I can see.
No, that's the. I don't want to. I'm going to give you a little pushback there. I don't think this is falling apart. This is the direction that they want to see the market move in. Right? Is like the winners have been chosen from our AI labs. They're going to get the contracts. They're going to get the public approvals and so on. And if we allow to keep going on what's been happening the past few weeks, right, we're going to see new contenders only option to be consumed by these larger entities and not be able to move forward in their own business models. And honestly, thank God for a global market, right? Because like Minimax H3, I'll say this a million more times, it's as good as seed dance and you can run it. Or you can pay for an API that costs you next to nothing. That is industry disruptive. So while we might be choosing Google's video model or OpenAI's video model or so on and pushing people towards those directions, anyone with an AI, a search can find that for a lot less. DeepSeek, like we discussed, Kimi, GLM 5.2, like all these things are really hard to turn off, in particular when they're so ubiquitous that like normal people can run them and host them through like Morpheus even, right? Like a service like Morpheus inherently means durability in that sector.
Interesting. Okay, I'll give you that. Now, in terms of security, like I said, agentic commerce is just kind of totally exploding and hitting a massive inflection point. Story out of payments.com. MasterCard is arguing that AI agents will continue to rely on the card network infrastructure because autonomous transactions still require identity verification, tokenized credentials, fraud control, dispute procedures, and consumer protection. So basically they're saying the infrastructure is already there to kind of manage security and identity. And so they're saying that the agentic commerce for consumers is going to have sort of the similar familiar rights when an AI agent makes an unauthorized or incorrect purchase. And so, but I think, if you, the problem is that people don't give clear rules to the agents, which we saw with OpenAI, or they don't give rules or they give rules that they want them to go in one direction, only, and then they don't think of the consequences or the cascading effects out of that. I don't know. It's like this. I mean, it's like we're already having problems around security and AI agents, and now banks are now saying, yeah, let's throw AI agents into the mix and let's have consumers run it. It's really
agents into the mix.
Sorry,
they're saying let's throw our AI agents in the mix in order to maintain their system, right? So like if you just said, like there still has to be identity verification, they're still going to be paying that Visa tax or that MasterCard tax, that Amex tax. When I got into crypto, I did it because I fundamentally believe that, Web3 was a system that's supposed to beat those things. Right. And when I see all this occurring right now, it's being touted as like this big, sea change, but it's not. Like if you're only allowed to conduct across PayPal's stablecoin or Visa stablecoin with your agent, and you have to have KYC and you have to be registered to a normal bank account and so on, just an extension of more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, Plaid, which is an American financial services company, just announced they're giving Sierra's AI agents live access to bank accounts. They've developed an integration that allows an AI agent to request permission to connect to a customer's bank account during a live conversation. The AI agent can then use the customer's financial data without requiring the person to leave the chat, potentially supporting refinancing, eligibility checks, account support, or personalized financial guidance. The integration makes the service more relevant and convenient because the AI agent no longer operates with hypothetical information. It creates high-stake permission moment. So that's, your idea about middle class can't, they basically go out and get financial advice. Now AI agents are going to say, hey, can I access all your financial records so I can give you financial advice? That's where we're heading to, if we're not already there.
I still won't let a model in my bank account and my emails. I don't know why. I let models.
Sorry, what?
I still won't let models in my bank accounts or my emails. I have models.
I won't either.
Root access on my main computer, so it's not like I'm being secure, but there's just something I don't know. I'm like, I don't want you doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the personalized financial stuff that makes sense. I mean, and obviously AI with personalization in marketing is exploding like crazy. But it just, yeah, I, I'm not ready to kind of hand the keys over yet either at this point in time.
So I,
But it feels, yeah,
what I have to look. One second. Let me see what tool I was using. So there's a few read-only tools that allow you to access bank information. So I created a personal like financial dashboard. It uses, oh come on, I'll have to look it up and tell you here. But it basically uses a service to link to all of my bank accounts and all of my credit cards to pull in all of the transactions and all of the bank data. And then I have a locally hosted dashboard for managing it all. But I'll let agents interact with my locally hosted dashboard, but it's all read only. So they don't have, they don't have access to credit card numbers. They don't have access to bank account numbers, but they do have access to all of my financial data through my local host dashboard.
It makes perfect sense. And I've even used, what was the Rocket Money that existed before?
yeah, Rocket Money, yeah.
When I say there's no good reason for me to have these feelings or beliefs, like there's no good reason, but I just still don't want AI. I know it's going to go to some training pool, right? That's why, I guess. And like, my taxes are my business. I file them on my account. So like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, if it's local
simplefin.org is it's like $15 a year or something like that, and it lets you. It's like a very, very lightweight plaid type system that, because getting access to these bank APIs and getting access to a credit card information, all that stuff, it's a pain. It's really, really difficult. But as far as like tax returns and financial data and all that stuff, like I honestly feel like all of my data is already out on the dark web anyways. Like literally, like it's so bad. Like I'll set custom passwords for all of my bank accounts, and I'll watch those passwords pop up on the dark web, and I'll be like, did anyone announce that bank got hacked? No one announced it. No one announced that Banco Popular in Puerto Rico lost my password within 6 months of me opening an account. Like they're a sieve. They're a sieve. So
there's this thing going on. Okay, one of the biggest investors of Flock simultaneously owns a company that secures public cameras by white hat hacking, right? And you see Flock data is constantly getting hacked.
Right.
And like, I think someone with enough money just figured out that like, why not play both ends on these subjects? Like, yeah. So there's no way you can be so poor at security that you're hacked every 3 months all the time. I too have the deep web scrapers going on where I can see what's happening and whatnot. And like the only way to get around that is just lessen your online footprint. There's no other way. Because if you have one, it's exposed.
It's not even like online. Like, so my wife went and got a new social security card printed, right? So she went to the office in Puerto Rico to get a new social security card. And it was like 6 days later, after she got her social security card, she got an alert from an identity system that does all this tracking, and said her social security number popped up on the dark web.
Yeah.
Wow.
In 6 days.
Wow. How much do you pay for security for your family yearly?
What's that?
How much do you pay for security for your family yearly? What do you think?
Oh goodness. Not a lot. Maybe like $1,000, like okay. All in on all the different subscriptions and stuff.
How much did you pay in 2018?
Oh, like next to nothing. Probably nothing.
Nothing, right? It's an emerging market, and I'm seeing it happen.
Yeah.
I think the way it's going to play out, especially with these models and the restrictions and so on, is you either pay to have yourself secured or you are insecure. And
and when I say $1,000, I'm thinking everything from like security cameras to encrypted storage to
to insurance on accounts over certain values to I'm trying to think about all the and like man, I pay at least $1,000 a year to like make sure that we can just wake up and chill.
I even use, I don't know if you've used the app called Cloaked.
Yeah, I have Cloaked.
Dude, I had this idea for Cloaked like back in like 2012, and it was like one of the ones that I just wrote down and never did. And then when someone showed me the app a couple years ago, I was like, finally, someone built it. I've been needing this.
But it doesn't do anything. Like it just goes to the public data vendors and pulls your information from them. What can they do? Like somebody with a real motive is not going to go to a public data vendor and be like, can I buy Ryan's information? Like, no, they're going to, repositories online that are not regulated and making sure. But like, I did that just to lessen the amount of ads I see thrown around at me or like, if you go to peoplesearch.com, I don't appear, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but you know what? They're all selling the data. Google's selling all of the tracking data, all of the cookies and everything. Because I have completely unrelated systems, right? Where I'm seemingly on a Windows computer over here, and I'm doing some research on a camera, right? Like a point and shoot camera. Mm-hmm. And literally the next day, my feed is flooded on Instagram with camera stuff. And all I did was a comparison search on my computer and I watched a YouTube review video. That was it. I watched one YouTube review video, and now all of a sudden Instagram, completely different company, completely different system, is flooding my feed with ads on the same product. They're selling your data. They're tracking you, and they're selling your data across streams.
Yeah. Ryan, go to Instagram, and I want you to type in neural network reads the Bible.
Oh yeah.
This guy is a gigabrain. I think he worked for like a few of the big tech companies, but now he's on his own, and he just does these crazy things online. So what he does is like to show you how insecure we really are and how quickly this data is moving around. He puts a QR code in his high-rise window, right? And if you scan this QR code to see what it is, because all of his neighbors were curious, they scanned it, and you just have to agree to his terms and conditions. Well, now you've agreed to him harvesting data on you. So he has this Raspberry Pi camera in his window, and now he can tell you have a dog, you're 40, you scanned it from this IP address, so this is he can determine everything about you. Absolutely everything, down to siblings and full name and job and title and all this stuff. And now let's say you want it removed, right? Which there are no federal laws about whatsoever. You have to go through his data removal process, which he mirrors off of Amazon just to show the ridiculousness, right? So like it's like 30 seconds of like a maze of captures and things that you have to go through. And then you have to request to receive your data and delete it. Well, then they have 30 days. And he shows you like the absolute ludicrousness of where the system is currently. And now he's currently become Flock, where he puts a camera in the middle of a park, and he can't take individual user data with names and so on. That's illegal. But what he can do is measure your gait, and your gait's a unique aspect, or get a picture of your ear, and that's a unique aspect as to who you are. And he just keeps showing us how unbelievably insecure we are. And there's no politician coming to save us. Like I haven't seen one bill pushed forward, one discussion on the House floor, nothing about any of these things. Yeah. It's like, it's just where we're at.
So it's fascinating. You have to look it up. There's a guy that was selling scarves years ago, and the scarves have a pattern on them that mess up like flash and other like camera stuff. And he was selling to celebrities, because if they wore this scarf and the paparazzi were trying to take pictures of them, then it was like it was messing up the photos. And I might be completely slaughtering like how this worked, but he had this pattern that was messing with the cameras. And I imagine, it's going to be more and more like human camouflage. Like, how do we protect ourselves? How do we cover our license plates with a film that keeps people from just like tracking us? Or how do we shroud our faces in a way that keeps people from tracking us? It's just like, I mean, this is like, what's that?
There were these AI sweaters where there were these asymmetric patterns on a sweater that when recognition was ran through a camera, it just wouldn't tell that was a human.
Okay. Yeah.
Companies were pushing stuff like that. Like, anyone who's ever read a sci-fi novel understands, like, this leads to like $1 million box that I press when I'm around technology that makes me invisible. That
the cloaking.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's so true. Like, if I could wear something that creates an EMAG pulse that basically just distorts the the cameras.
It was a reflective radio wave or something like that. Like, yeah, man, there'll be something. Like, but then again, most people will never even know that exists or have any access to it. So while we might win that game, I hope everyone on this call does, right? It doesn't matter. The major population will lose a lot of their civil liberties, and like, I don't want to see that. So get uncensored models, guys, and protect yourselves and learn about these things.
Yeah, and then it comes back to, I don't know, it's not that people are lazy, but it's like the amount of effort you have to put in now to try and retain or get any level of decent security is so high that it's getting out of reach of almost everyone. And with AI coming in with its ability to even, make this more intense, I think it's just going to put it into the stratosphere. So basically, like you said, everything goes on the dark web anyway within 6 days or sooner. It's just kind of crazy where we're going into this whole cyberpunk world where everything is public, everything gets accessible.
Northern Arizona, 6,000 feet elevation, right? No one lives there. You're like 3 hours to the next town. I could build some sort of like greenhouse with like a reflective surface. No one could see me in there. Like, this is where my mind goes to. And like, like, that's the game plan, guys.
Yeah, I keep going 40 acres in Wyoming. Let's go back to that.
There you go.
What else has been happening in the news? We're coming up towards the end now. Actually, we are towards the end now. So, lots of great discussions. Why don't we close it out for the day? It's been a lot of interesting news popping through. Again, regulatory stuff and other weird stuff. But, let me close out. Thanks, guys. I'll do a wrap up, and we can chat again next week, same channel, same time. Okay. Till then, thanks, guys. We'll just do this.
Cheers.
And I will jump to my ending, which is, so this week's AI stories, I think they reveal, sort of a connected transformation. AI is moving from generating information to exercising authority. Governments are fighting over models and market access. Investors are converting future demand into data centers, chips and power plants, and people are forming emotional and cultural relationships with machines, and autonomous agents are beginning to buy, build, and access, decide, and act even more than they were before. I'm hoping, the hopeful truth is that authority is still somewhat something human beings grant. We can demand evidence, we can preserve consent, we can strengthen human relationships, we can protect creativity, we can design meaningful limits, and we can ensure that technology expands our agency rather than quietly, continually replacing it. I think the decisive advantage will not belong only to those who build the most powerful AI. It will belong to those who remain conscious of what power they are giving it and wise enough to know what must always remain human. And remember, we're not predicting the future. We're just kind of debugging it all together. And that's it for this week in AI. Stay informed, stay curious, and stay conscious of the systems being built around you. Come back next Tuesday when we'll once again move beyond the announcements and examine the gaining power, what infrastructure is being built, what human assumptions are changing, and where control is quietly moving. And again, if you want a free dose of the newsletter, I'll just chuck that into the chat, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks to everyone. let that roll.